Hello, my name is Bobby McGrath, and today I'm going to be talking through a Android Studio project that I created for a university project during my time there. So essentially what this project was an app which would allow a user to be able to organize themselves. It was built in conjunction with the Young People's Counselling Services of Peterborough. So what they did was they had some people or some representatives come through, and I sat down and spoke to them, and we gained an idea of what they wanted throughout the project. And they were quite flexible in terms of what they wanted, but one of the things they specified that they would like would be a colour scheme which matched their particular style. So if we go here to their website, we can see that I've used similar conventions to what they use themselves in their color schemes. So in terms of the actual layout, I decided to have a simplistic splash screen which allows a user to select from a various selection of different things that could be useful to them. So we have a calendar, an alarm, a notes section, and some finance sections. So if we go onto the calendar section for starters, and we go to the corresponding Java class here, and just bring this back up. So what we have here is a calendar, which is built in my layout section. Where is it? Calendars, just here. So the calendar is formed just here if it decides to build. Here we go. And essentially what this is it's a calendar view which has a simplistic ID which just allows me to reference it later on in the Java program, the Java section of the program here. And it also has an edit text, so we can enter some information, a button so we can add the event to our calendar based upon what's typed in here, and it uses the YCPS blue and yellow conventions. So if we see here, the yellow is the background and the blue is the secondary color, which if we go to our values can be seen just here. Sorry, colors should I say. So YPS blue and yellow here are these various hex values. So if we go back now to, just going to remove these just to keep things a little bit tidy. Here we go, calendar. So I don't know why there's a bunch of other things open. I don't recall opening them. Let's just quickly get rid of them for now. So okay, so we have our calendar, and let's just say we have a random date. What it does is it creates a toast message here that just says there's no events for today, and we have a selected date here on the 15th, for instance, of the 7th. So I don't know, let's just say on the 22nd we wanted to, it's cool day. So cool day, whether it be a cool weather day or just a cool day. So now if we just come back here, there's no event for that day, but now we have the cool day event on the 22nd, so they can add events into their calendar, which is quite useful, and they can go through the calendar like so. So then we also have an alarm. Oh, sorry, before I do that I should explain as well. So essentially all that does is it uses an if statement, which is just returning the toast value here based upon the string. So if the string they enter is less than 0 or 0 or less, then it will tell them that they haven't actually entered an event name yet. So if we go back to our calendar and they try to enter an event that doesn't exist, it will say to them, sorry, but I don't know, that's not working. Here we go. So no event name entered yet. There's nothing that's been entered yet. So essentially that's what that section here does, and then what will happen is the little text area here will just return the selected date onto the screen just like so, and then this is where the toast selection happens. So if there's no event, it will say no event, and if there is an event, then it will display the event name here, which is saved as a, where are we, event name entry, which is an event name entry, which then gets passed into a variable, which can feed it back into our toast. So that's how that works. It's quite a simplistic little section there, really. Then we have an alarm, and if we go to our alarm class, so everything begins from the navbar class, I should mention as well, which just has a section of cards. Just here, these are just cards that can be interacted with, and this just starts the activity. using an intent here, and it uses a switch case just to basically, you know, iterate through. So if they select the calendar card, which is referenced by the ID here, it'll create a new intent which selects the calendar class and then starts that activity and then breaks from it to begin that new activity. So if we go to the alarm here and we go to our alarm class just here, we can see here it's essentially using a time picker and a dialog fragment, which creates just a time picker. So it's quite a simple little thing. And then it's just using a calendar to get the hour, the minute and the second in the day, and then, you know, letting us know, has it been enabled, you know. So is that button enabled? True. So if we look here, by default the cancel alarm is actually set to false. So you can't cancel alarm that doesn't yet exist, and I think personally from a user experience point of view, that's quite important. So creating a way where a user can't accidentally press something which is going to cause the system to have some issues is quite important. But as I mentioned earlier, the actual alarm setter value here is enabled by default. So then what happens is when we actually do create the alarm itself, cancel alarm set enabled is false. And then once we actually pick a time, the cancel alarm will be set to true, so we can therefore cancel the alarm. So if we do this here, it will open up our time picker fragment, and if we just use 10:54 for instance, we should get a notification shortly just to tell us that there's an alarm going off. Here we go. So if we pull this down, just to let you know your alarm is going off. Okay, great. So that alarm's now served its purpose, so we don't need it anymore, so we can now cancel it. Once it's cancelled, it'll let the user know, but they can no longer cancel the alarm. So it's just a simplistic system which allows the user to select their alarm, but it doesn't allow them to click anything which could ruin their user experience either. So then we have a notes section here, and I've got a note here that I've already populated here just to show you a few things we can do. But for starters, if we click here, we can create a new note. It's quite important just to go to our note section here. So our notes class has quite a few different things. So it has a note class and then a notes class. So a note class is a single note, and then a notes class is a selection of notes. Now the note class, essentially what this is doing is this is getting information from elsewhere, essentially. So, and what it's looking to do is it's looking to return an ID, a title, the content, the date and the time. And what it also does is it uses a MySQL-like database handler. So it creates a database, and this database contains a title, the content, the date and the time, as we mentioned earlier, which it's trying to reference. It's trying to reference information from that database just here. So what it will do is it will say put the information into the title, put the information into content, the date, the time. It will get the cursor position of the note. It will do a lot of complex different things. Creates a SQL-like database, and then it creates a simple query: select all from the database table, which is just simply it's just a reference essentially, and then a database name, and then a version. You can have several different versions of this database as well. So all it's doing is it's reading from a SQL database, a MySQL database, and then it's collecting that information here, and then it's generating it in the notes section just here. So how that works is we click this little plus icon here, and what it's saying is, okay, so we're looking for a title here. So if we go back here where we want to put a title into our database, so if we just say my new note, and if I could spell properly today, and if we see just here it's created the title here of my new note. So if we go back to our notes class, it will, I don't know where the section is off the top of my head, but essentially what it does is it takes what's being entered in here and gives it that as a note title. And then if we go back to our MySQL database, we need to add some content in there. So this is where the details come in. So I am just creating a new note for this video. Okay, so now we can enter that information. If we come back out and go back in, my new note. I'm just creating a new note for this video. So what we can also do is we can edit it. Video, I will write some extra stuff to show me editing this file. There we go. Always got to include a bit of humour. So then if we go back in here, we can now see that we've edited our information. So all we're doing is we're appending to our database at this point. We're just adding information. We can also delete context from a database as well. So, you know, it looks like from a end user perspective, they're just deleting the note, but actually in reality, all we're doing is clearing that information from the database. And it will just create some toast here. I create a toast message that says note deleted. We'll go back and check it's been deleted. And let's just say we're creating a note, you know, we'll just do something random here. Oh no, this is meaningless, we don't need this. Click that and we can cancel the note, and again it just creates a toast message. So it's just a simplistic note creating system, but it uses a database within it to hold that information, so it's quite useful. And then we have a finances section, and what this is it allows a user to be able to, if we just clear our budget, it allows a user to be able to enter money. But what we need to do, sorry, if I just quickly go to my finance file here just to give a better overview about what's going on. When we set our initial budget, we can't clear a budget that doesn't exist, and we can't add to a budget that doesn't exist, or subtract money from a budget that doesn't exist. So again, from a user experience perspective, these buttons have been disabled so that, you know, nothing can be done with it apart from set a budget. So, you know, if we try to set a budget that doesn't yet exist, it will say no budget set. You can't set a budget that doesn't yet exist. So again, it's very centered towards the idea of creating a system which can't be tampered with or create an issue for the end user. So if we create ourselves a budget of say £200, it'll say our budget's £200. Now usually when you step back out and step back in, this £200 is gone, but I am in fact using, just trying to find where the reference is. I do apologise, quite a big program. So here we go. I'm using shared preferences to store the information of the budget, and then I'm simply retrieving that information when I enter back into this section of the app. So it's creating a shared preference which stores the value that I enter in here into my budget, which itself is stored in a double. It's stored in a variable, which is a double, which is called budget, and then that budget is referenced back here into our string. And also, just to prevent any other issues as well, if the string is empty, then it will just start again saying there is nothing in your budget. So if we clear the budget, come back out and go back in, your budget is 0. So it won't bug out, it won't try and search for a reference that doesn't exist, so to speak, and in the process it will also clear those buttons as well. So if we just, I don't know, let's just say we've had a bit more money this week and we've got 500, so we set our budget, come back out. So now these budget buttons here are actually, they're working again now, so we can actually do stuff with them. So let's just say we wanted to add an additional, I don't know, like £20 to our budget. So our new budget is 520. If we step out, we go back in, and it's added that to the budget. So the budget itself again is a variable. So all it's doing is adding to that budget variable, which is being called back in here as a shared preference. And just returning that to the screen. So it's quite a nice simplistic way of being able to keep hold of information without having to use a complex database. I wanted to use a database for the note-taking system to get a good idea of how that worked, but I also wanted to use something more simplistic, and for this we didn't really need a big database of information. You know, we just needed something to hold the value of our money. And again, if we want to subtract, so let's just say we £50 for whatever reason, and we wanted to subtract, sorry, let's just say, let's just try and say we took £500 away, so now we've got 70. So we got a budget of 70, add like 100 onto it, and let's just say, okay, let's just say we try to do something different and take away 200. You don't have enough money, you can't do that. So it's got fail safes in here which prevent the user from having any issues. And again, if you want to clear the budget, it clears the budget, come back out, and the budget is set back to 0. So it's a nice simplistic system, but it does exactly what it does, you know, what it needs to do. And then I've created a little button here which allows us to navigate into a new area with additional choices. And this was done very much at the last minute, but I wanted to add some extra functionality just to really get the most out of this program. By this point, you know, there was enough there to create a simplistic organizer app. But then I thought, well, you know, there's other things that people might want to do in their life to organize themselves. And because this is a young people's counselling service, there may be things that they want to do more in relation to this this company, Young People's Counselling Services in Peterborough. So I wanted to make it more, you know, viable to what their goal was as an organisation. Having had the meeting with them and them telling me what they wanted, they said, you know, just make sure that the app contains things that young people of today would find useful. So I thought, well, a calendar to keep track of their date and times, an alarm to help them wake up, some notes, you know, to keep their eye on things, finances. You know, we've all been young and we've all had to save money before, and we're all in the same boat saving money now, so it's the same situation. But of course, you know, they might want to send an email. You know, and this is geared towards, you have to bear in mind, young people that may have mental health issues. So what I did here was in the send email section, for instance, if we go to edit, sorry, not edit, send email, clicking all the wrong things today, send email, we can see that we have a entire class dedicated to this particular job. And here we have some useful contacts. So if we go to our layout and we go to our, where is it, send email, all that is essentially a text view which has some useful contacts here. And then we have a subject and a message. Now, for instance, if we use this message as an example, we have an ID called ET message. So if we go to our send email class, and here we're looking for a view by ID called ET message. And when we're ready to set the text, we will set it just here as a reference there. So it's quite a simplistic little way of doing things. So for instance, if we wanted to, I don't know, message, I don't know, admin, I'll do this manually, sorry, admin at ycps.uk. Hello was the subject, hello, and then, you know, a message of call me back please. So if we go to send, what will happen now is it will take us to our Gmail dialog. So it actually does work. I won't try and trigger the Gmail dialog because that'll be a lot of hassle, but what happens is essentially it creates a mail to and it, you know, populates the subject and it populates the content, the actual text itself into the Gmail email itself. So it passes all the information from this template onto Gmail, which allows us to send an email from an external area. And then we have make a phone call, which again works in a very similar way. So we have phone numbers for various different things, and we also have an emergency contact here. So if we have I don't know, you know, we use the YCPS one again that we had a moment ago, so 0800 634 4395. And we add them to our emergency contact. They are now added, and again, using shared intents, it will store that information, and we can call that emergency contact as well, and we can clear that emergency contact, and if we just end that call, and we can also enter a number. So if we want to call Samaritans, for instance, 116 123, and we could call that number as well. So it has the ability to make phone calls as well. So if we go on to our phone call class, again, there's a lot going on here, but essentially what we have is we have a way to store an emergency contact through shared intents just here. Sorry, shared preferences, should I say. And we also have a, you know, it's looking, is it saying, is it empty? If it is, then, you know, we need to be able to let the user know. If there isn't a share, you know, an emergency contact, we shouldn't be able to press that button. If we try to enter someone, you know, so it's all about system validation. It's all about making sure that the system is completely usable from day one, you know, using the principles. What I tried to do when I created this was I tried to use an agile methodology. So what I did was I created an initial, and I know, you know, I know that agile is for a team, but the idea of agile is so strong that I wanted to try and implement it in a way that I could use it as an individual. So what I did was I essentially created a product backlog where I had a list of things that I wanted to achieve throughout the entire project. And then I'd create sprints where I'd have to get something done. So for instance, I'd spend a week working on just the calendar and the alarm, and I would set myself a sprint backlog for that particular sprint where I'd have to complete everything, and all of these minimum requirements such as being able to enter an event name and adding the event, and then I prioritized those particular sprints based upon what was needed. So I absolutely needed to enter an event, but did I need to have a way to tell the user that they haven't actually entered anything in yet? No, that wasn't essential. So I run essentially an agile methodology throughout my program, but as an individual, if that makes sense. And then what I would do is I review what I had done throughout the project after each I guess sprint. It wasn't really a sprint, but it was a reenactment of a sprint. And then I would also go in and have a retrospective where I'd see what I could bring forward to the future iterations of the project and how I can make it better. And then we have a location service here, which is just a simple Google map, which just takes the user to the YCPS location, and it allows them to I can't quite remember how to do it on this emulator, I must be honest. Here we go. It allows them to zoom in and zoom out. So that's quite useful if they're looking for a specific place. And then we have a pedometer. So unfortunately, as this is a simulation, it doesn't work in this, but I put this into my phone and I walked about for a bit and it did indeed work. So you start your pedometer, it starts, you take a few steps, and what it actually does is it creates a text view just here which tells you your steps, but because this is a simulation I can't simulate steps. It doesn't do that. But if we go into the pedometer class here, which uses sensors, so it just uses various floats, and it's looking for it's just returning various bits of information here, and what it does, it then uses that sensor to create a step detector, which is just basically listening for steps and then returning the information from the steps back into the track steps area here. But it's all quite complicated, but doesn't actually work in this section because it's an emulation, but I tried it on my phone, it seemed to work okay. So that is basically it for the program. There's quite a lot of information I haven't covered today because it's quite a large program, quite a lot of information that I've done. I did this on my third year of university. I did this in conjunction with my final dissertation project, which can also be seen on this channel as well if you're curious to see what I did there. And I also did this in conjunction with working as a lecturer, so it was a very, very busy time, and there was a lot going on, but I still managed to achieve quite a bit. But the scope of the project was quite large. It was quite an ambitious project, but I still managed to get it all done by the deadline as well, so I was quite pleased by that. But if there's any more information that you wish to find out about this particular project, or what I did, or the processes that I followed, please just drop me a message, or you're welcome to ask me any additional questions, and I'll be happy to help. But I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I know it's quite long, but I wanted to cover as much as I could. And yeah, if there's anything you want to know, please just drop me a message. But thank you very much for your time. Bye now.